Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast. You guys, Dr. Ann, we're here for another episode and we're excited to chat. We are going to be talking about the blueprint for lasting change. And there's a
Mm,
few components that go into this blueprint that both Ann and I are super excited to chat about. We were talking a little bit off camera before we hit the record button, but and I know that this particularly is probably one of the biggest hurdles you probably come across as well when working with your clients directly, just because, again, it's one thing to say, I lost 20 pounds. It's another thing to cultivate values that lead to keeping the 20 pounds off and truly like version 2.0 of yourself, as we talk about, right? So old you will cost you, or new you will cost you old you. I got that backwards for a second. And so
yep.
we are going to chat about today what goes into cultivating the values that lead to the person you are now becoming, rewiring. We talked about a lot of the rewiring in the brain the last podcast episode. So if you guys did not listen to that one, I'd highly encourage you to rewind, go listen to that podcast, and then come back to this podcast because it's going to build off of last podcast for sure. But take it
Okay.
away, sister. Let you kick
Well,
this off.
yes, and I think anytime that we're working on habit formation, and this is something that I see across the board, no matter what I'm working with. So it could be ADHD, it could be food, it could be exercise, it could be how I manage weight and that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I see that happens consistently for us as human beings is that we struggle in a number of different ways, but we struggle to actually identify what's going to make it worse and work. And the first part of this is, and I want to address this entirely, and there's so much that I want to ask you about, and so much that I know you have to offer this, but the
Yes.
strategy part,
Yes.
because I see so many people, and this recovery, mental health, eating disorders, addiction, like fill in the blank on this. The strategy that we go about using to try to get to our end goal oftentimes is highly problematic. And a lot of what exists on social media, and there's a lot of people out there that have lost 100 pounds or 50 pounds or 20 pounds, and all of us as human beings are so impressed by this, and we desire so much the results of what somebody else got, that I would almost say that many of us are willing to nearly sell our souls to the devil just to lose the weight.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, yes.
like and I understand that is desperation, because we've tried so much, we've worked so hard, we've done it over and over and over and over again, and we're not getting to where we want to go. But the problem with it is that if you take some random person off of social media, not saying that all of social media is bad, because certainly we're on here, but you take some random person off of social media and they say, well, don't eat carbs, don't eat sugar, never eat this, do this, make sure that you do 200 jumping jacks every single morning and squats, and you'll have a butt like mine. The problem is that the problem
Preach, sister.
is that that may not get you to where it is that actually you want to go, for a lot of different reasons. The number one biggest reason is that it's not an actual strategy. They Many times we're only getting bits and pieces, or we will only take bits and pieces of what we like or what will fit into our life.
Mm.
So I met with somebody last week where they were trying the carnivore diet. They had a flight. I don't understand how TSA does this or how they get through airports, because I've never done this. But they brought a steak and a stick of butter into the airport.
They did not bring a stick of butter. No, they didn't.
They did. They for sure did.
Oh
They
my
did. They
goodness.
did. I don't know how they got it. I think maybe it was frozen. I don't know. And they're sitting there gnawing on this, steak and stick of butter, trying to tell me how wonderful it was. And this is no knock on you if you love the carnivore diet. But the problem is that they were picking and choosing the things that they wanted from it, because they were trying to convince themselves that they loved it because they were getting instant results. They were
Hmm.
starting to lose weight. They were managing inflammation. Their skin was clearing up a little bit. They'd been on it for a couple weeks, but long term, and this is what we see, okay, with diets like this is why 95% of all diets fail, according to research. This isn't according to me. According to research, 95% of all diets fail because long term, even though we can make it work in the short term, long term, we don't want to spend the rest of our life chewing on frozen sticks of butter and steak in an airport. That is
Isn't it
not
funny
what we
what we'll
like.
convince ourselves of too in the moment? It's like, oh, this is the best thing ever. Because in the moment, the scale's going down. And it's just so funny what we can convince our brains to believe. And in the moment, it's great until the second the scale stops moving and you look at butter and you want to vomit at that point because
Yes.
you've eaten more sticks of butter than you know what to like do with.
Yes. And I see people picking and choosing things that they like from different people. So one person will say, only steak, only butter, only this, only that, and then another person says, but never eat this type of thing or this carbohydrate because you absolutely will gain a ton of weight from this carbohydrate. And so then we're picking and choose different things. Then another person who says, well, I do 200 squats a day, and this is what my butt looks, do 200 squats a day. And we find ourselves doing these things that are unrealistic for our life and don't actually net result the pattern that we want to achieve in life.
Mm.
Somebody who said this to me, another person who said this to me just earlier this week, I don't want to bring all my food with me every place I go to go when I'm going to eat out with friends. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds really problematic. That doesn't sound like a lifestyle that I want either.
Yeah. Sounds pretty
So
miserable to me.
Nicole, and I want to ask you about strategy because you are the strategy queen. You have got this down. And I feel like it's almost not fair that we're on a podcast giving this stuff out for free because legitimately this is gold and it's so simple and so straightforward that it almost seems like it doesn't work or it shouldn't work
Mm, mm.
because it fits in with lifestyle. So could you take it away on the strategy piece?
Yes, yes, let's talk about. And I guess if I'm going to be the queen of something strategy, I will take that title all day long. I think when we talk strategy, first and foremost, I want to highlight that we need to differentiate discomfort from misalignment. And
Mm,
like you said, you're talking carnivore, keto, just all of these super restrictive approaches would be at that point misalignment. I know in the moment you can convince yourself as the scale's going down, like we just said, that, oh, this is the best thing that ever happened to me until the scale stops moving. And when the scale
mhm.
stops moving, that's when, you revert right back into your old limiting habits, patterns, and beliefs that kept you stuck because the only thing that kept you
Yes.
motivated in the moment was that the scale was going down. And quite literally, that's your only metric of success. Now,
Hmm.
when it comes to the strategy, again, your effort doesn't always equal results. And this is where particularly a lot of women going through menopause will continue to spin their wheels. And nothing's more frustrating when you're hitting your protein goal, you're eating quote unquote healthy, you are hitting your step goal, you are somewhat working out, you're doing the things that you think you should, or doing the things that you hear about that should result in weight loss, but yet you're stuck, frustrated, and confused. And that's because, again, you're leading in with the wrong strategy. I want to call out that the right strategy will definitely have some discomfort. Specifically at
Hmm.
the very beginning, when we are rewiring limiting habits, patterns, and beliefs that have kept you stuck for so very long. The right strategy is going to feel slightly uncomfortable because all you know is chaos when it comes to weight loss. That is all that you know. Keto, Whole30, again, I keep calling out these diets, but they're super restrictive. They put you within a box that basically gives you good versus bad mentality. And ultimately, if life be lifing and something pulls you out of the super restrictive box, you don't know how to operate outside of those very like black and white metrics that you were given. And all of these approaches, you guys, were first and foremost, they were designed for you to lose a bunch of weight really freaking quickly. But the back end of that they don't market to is they were designed for you to put every single pound back on plus the courtesy 10, 15, 20 pounds because they want a customer for the rest of their life, right? And they want you to think like they want you to hyperfixate, well, it worked the first time. So clearly I'm the problem. And it keeps you operating out of this space of just chaos and just hyper vigilance. And you're constantly, and I know you know what I'm talking about, that feeling. How would you describe it, Anne, where you're just anxious? You're just constantly anxious because you're like, should I eat this? Should I not eat this? Is this good? Is this bad? Am I going to gain 10 pounds? I went out with my husband. Now I need to go do, like last night and I ate the cheesecake, but now I need to go do more cardio. It's just that hyper anxious. Would you call it? Do you have a
Yes.
better word for it?
Obsessive.
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 Obsessive
That's
is a
that's the word I use for it.
Yep. Obsessive is a really great word. And we actually had a team call yesterday, and this is something that we really dove heavily into, is that when you have the right strategy, it is going to feel so very boring at times. It's going to feel so very repetitive. And that feels ass backwards because all you know is the obsessive. All you know is the anxiety in and around, I need to get it off as quickly as I possibly can. This has to suck my soul. It has to be miserable. If I don't feel like dog doo doo, if I'm not driving my body into the ground, then I'm not working hard enough. But when we come in and we normalize eating food, we come in and we normalize just moving your body in a way that feels good. You don't need 10 hit sessions a week that drive your body into the ground. We come in and we give you the foundational pieces that I talk about that aren't sexy and they're not glamorous. And that's why they don't make it to mainstream or, to social media in and around the same way that keto and Whole30 does, or, intermittent fasting or carnivore, like you said, because ultimately those things will result in you losing a bunch of weight really quickly. It's a super
Yep.
restrictive way of going about something. But when we come in and fat loss is just very half of a pound to a pound and a half on a week is on average is very normal rate of fat loss. But
Mhm.
you have been conditioned to believe that if you're not dropping 15 or 20 pounds in a month, then you're not doing it correctly. And so
Yes.
there is so much to the strategy in the very beginning that I want you to, again, misalignment is this sucks my soul. This is miserable. I have no energy. My hair's falling out in chunks. That's misalignment. I'm eating whole
Hmm.
foods and more protein. This isn't happening as quickly as I want it to. And I have to learn to sit in my discomfort is not, that doesn't mean that it's the wrong strategy. Typically, the repetitiveness of that means that you found the right approach. And being able to, look at this from a space of, I swear to you guys, I promise you, and this is, I gained and lost the same 80 to 100 pounds, like it's 6 or 7 times. So I hear you, I see you, I was you, but constantly chasing that quick fix ended up costing me 33 years of my life. That quick fix was the
Hmm.
longest approach I could have because I lost the weight to put it all back on, to lose the weight to put it all back on again. So I'm going to give you guys we have 6 non-negotiables on my team. And when you master these 6 things, they work every single time. These things aren't sexy. They're not glamorous. They're not the instant quick fix, but I swear to all things holy, they have never not worked when dosed correctly and with the right strategy and with the right plan.
Yes.
Calories, protein,
Hmm. Hmm.
water, steps, strength training, AKA lifting heavy shit, as I say. You master those 6 things, you will never, ever, 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 ever struggle with dieting again. You just won't. Now, those 6 things need to be in the right context, in the right amounts for your body. I have so many free resources, you guys, when it comes to calories. I have a calculator. Obviously, this is what we do exceptionally well on Team Becoming Her because we give you that strategy that is truly unique and custom to you. But I have more free resources when it comes to calculating your calories, what you should be consuming, free, workout programs. If you want those, my social media handles are linked in the Spotify or in the podcast description. Hit me up on social media. I'm more than happy to help a girl out. But with that being said, those 6 things, they feel very like I know for a fact I say those things and you're like, that's it? Really?
Hmm.
You
Can I
want
can I just
something? Yes, please interject here.
can I just mention the hardest part of this I hear across the board is actually eating enough calories.
Mhm.
And we think of it like a dream. And if we packaged it in keto and said, well, you can eat whatever fat and whatever meat you want as long as you don't have carbs, we would do it because we're like, oh, there's science behind that. They said that there's science behind it. There's research backed and you lose lots, and you will because you'll lose a lot of water weight initially. But eating enough calories with carbohydrates added into it.
Well, and it's a calories, yes, that 100%. But it makes me laugh because the math isn't mathing. It's like, okay, in order for you to lose body fat, you have to be in a calorie deficit and you cut out
Yep.
whole food groups, right? Like let's take carnivore keto, you're cutting out a whole food group. Do you know how many calories that stick of butter has that you're munching on? like, like, let's just go there. If you
No,
want to go
no,
there, you're munching like a stick of butter. I mean, a tablespoon of butter, you guys, has 110 calories in a tablespoon. There's what, 12 tablespoons in a stick of butter, maybe? I'm just guessing off the top of my head. You've just consumed well over 1,000 calories in a stick of butter. I mean, I don't know who, maybe you do sit down and like you eat a whole stick of butter. I don't know. God help me if you are. Like my heart hurts for you. But I mean, calories are the thing, and what women do is they want to associate very little food with very little calories. But when we
Mhm.
come in and we flip that, and a lot of times, like one of the one things we hear in our team is like, Nicole, I've never eaten this much food. I've never been so happy and satiated eating this much food and losing weight. And what you're missing here is, yeah, you might be eating more volume, but that doesn't mean you're eating more calories. That just means we have you
Yes.
eating the right types and the right amounts of food that keep your belly happy and satiated. But the, handful of nuts that you're munching on, your caramel frappuccino, your blueberry muffin, and your salad that has more dressing on it, that has probably more calories than a whole meal that I would eat in just one sitting, leaves
Yep.
you hangry and miserable and not satiated. And so you think just because you're eating very, very little volume, that you're eating very little calories. And it never fails, Ann. It never fails. I swear to you, up, down, left, sideways. Whenever somebody comes into me insisting they're only eating 1,200 calories a day and they can't lose weight, and we come in and we show them how to track not just effectively, but accurately. And they track for a week, not changing a thing. That 1,200 calories every single time is like 26 or 2,700 calories. And that's not a bad thing, but that's education and that's awareness. And that's why you can't lose weight. It's not the
Mhm.
1,200, it's the lack of the actual context in and around what you're truly consuming. And this is why I'm such a big advocate for tracking. I'm not saying for the rest of your life. I'm not saying everybody should be attached to a food scale or tracking app, but tracking for a period of time to give you the awareness and the education of what calorie amounts actually look like and ultimately what it feels and looks like to fuel your body adequately.
Yes. And I would just say as well, because I deal with a lot of obsessive compulsive behaviors in the line of work that I'm in. And when we're using an app to track calories, it's not about your worthiness, it's not about your value. It's just feedback, it's just information, and it's one of the ways that we can hold ourselves accountable. So when we're doing it well, it almost looks like tracking receipts because you're trying to stay on a budget. So you go to the grocery store and the plan is to pay, I don't know, like spend like $250 and make sure you get everything covered. And as you're going to the grocery store, you're not judging yourself based upon what you're putting in your cart and how much it costs. You're just tracking information just to make sure that we're hitting the numbers that we need to hit. That's all it is. Um, and I think what happens so often is that we have grown so accustomed to equating our value with a number, be it the number on the scale, the size of clothes that we're in, or the number of calories that we got down to consuming that day, that and about what it says about who we are as human beings. And we have to be able to separate that in order to effectively to make changes in our life and to have a system that entails some degree of accountability and feedback. And that's all it is. That's all tracking is. Just feedback and accountability. That's it. Not to anybody, just to yourself, just to see how close we're getting.
Yep, 100%. And I guess let's talk about how do you, because I get asked this question often. It's like, well, how do I know if it's the right strategy, Nicole? How do I know if it's right for me? And I'm always going to ask you to lead this question with a very logical response opposed to emotional feeling, because I know, again, that just cutting carbs feels easy and emotionally you've been told that, you've grown up to believe that carbs are the enemy. But if you're taking an approach that doesn't keep you accountable to the amount of calories you're consuming, it's not the right approach. I'm not telling you that you're going to be tracking calories for the rest of your life, nor do I want that for the rest of your life. But if you are trying to take an approach that puts you within a generic box that has nothing to do with calories consumed, it's the wrong approach, because there is no awareness that will ever lead to sustainability. There's nothing to give you have nothing to educate yourself off of when, let's say, the diet stops working. Where do you go from there? You don't know where to go. You're constantly throwing shit at a wall, praying that it sticks, but you don't know when it stops working. Like when it's working, it's great, right? Until it stops working. And then when it stops working, you don't know where to go because you have no idea of the actual caloric intake. And again, I know that this tracking can feel very it's a sticky topic for a lot of people. I know that there is a lot of rewiring for some that goes into that. And I am not suggesting this is a lifelong thing, but if you've never spent a period of time tracking, I promise you that information will be eye opening. So if your
Mm-hmm.
approach does not involve some sort of way to track your intake, I'm telling you right now, it's the wrong approach long term, long term. And then ultimately understanding that it's the education piece of, okay, yes, the goal is to watch. Yes, the goal for a lot of you is to lose some weight. Yes, absolutely. I'm all for that. I'm all about watching the scale go down. However, if this approach doesn't chase, not just, I talk about this so often, the scale going down is a piece of this, building the body that you're ultimately after is another piece of this. And I'll dive into that here in a second because that's a completely different approach than just eat less, move more. But what about the I want to feel good side of it that gets overpowered by the I just want to look good side of it? So if the approach that you're taking or the strategy that you're taking, your hair is falling out in chunks, you have no energy, your body's sore, it's not recovering, your libido's tanked. And for a lot of women listening to this, going through, most women listening to this are thick of menopause, which we have so many podcasts talking about hormones and declining hormones that play a role. But it would be ignorant to say that your lifestyle does not play a role in your hormones. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're constantly underfed, stressed, not sleeping, yeah, that's going to play a role in how your body feels. And so what you give your body is how your body is going to respond. And if again you're zero energy, you just feel like absolute dog doo doo, it's the wrong strategy. But I want to, again, back up to the top, differentiate misalignment from just discomfort in the very beginning. When we start to rewire these things that we need to rewire, specifically, like Anne said, looking at food as the catalyst, as the vehicle. It's no longer the enemy of, I just need to focus on eating as little as I possibly can. I just need to get really smart about my actual intake and what it looks like to fuel my body correctly. And for a lot of you guys, that's going to be more volume than you ever thought
Hmm.
possible, but doesn't necessarily equate to less calories. And so
Yep.
these are only like these are really hard questions that you need to ask yourself. And you need to be in a place where you can get really open and honest with yourself. Because if you're in the thick of a quote unquote diet or strategy and the scale's going down, your judgment is going to be clouded. Like, I need you to ask yourself, is this really great because I truly love it? Or is this because the scale's going down? And I always use this analogy when I'm talking about fasting, because I'm like, I have yet to, and you can correct me if you're wrong, Anne, but I have yet to at least work with anybody who has ever come to me from a fasting approach, or let's even throw carnivore or keto in there, that honestly came to me because they love that lifestyle. It works really well for them. They feel really good with it. Like, ultimately, it's seamless for them. They're doing it because they're desperate. They're doing it because that's what they think they need to do. Yes, please interject. I see you.
Can,
You're like, I have
can
so much.
I can I mention one telltale sign that I experience in therapy is when somebody comes in and they tell me how much they don't care about something or how much they love something, and they say it over and over and over again. Every now and then it means that you actually really do. But oftentimes when I hear it in relationship to meal plan diets, that kind of stuff, sometimes even exercise regimes, I hear people come in and they'll be on keto for 8 months, okay? And every single time I'm around them, they're talking about how wonderful this diet is because because you are trying to convince yourself that you're loving it because you are hating it. When we love something, we don't talk about it morning, noon, and night for months. We talk about it once. I love cycling. I talk about it every now and then when we're talking about stuff,
Mhm.
but I don't spend every moment that I'm with every friend or at every single meal talking about how
It's not
much I
your
love my bike.
identity. You'll
That's
notice people are like
right.
fasting, like these people have an identity around these lifestyles. It's like, oh, I'm carnivore. It is their whole entire identity. And it's because they're trying to convince themselves.
Yes,
Yeah.
because when we're miserable and we know it inside, but we can't get our brain to reckon with it. You know, again, this is that I'm going to sell my soul to the devil to get to get the results I want. Then it creates a cognitive distortion in us. Like, it creates this cognitive dissonance that we have to constantly resolve. And that is evidence that we're trying to resolve the dissonance that is created because we're doing something that doesn't fuel our lifestyle. And that is a big part of this. The problem with strategy is having a strategy that doesn't actually fit your life. And I mentioned this before, I'll say it again. I am not a runner, but I tried real hard for several years to be a runner. There was lots of reasons why I tried really hard. Weight loss wasn't ironically one of them. I needed to get out of the house away from my kids who were driving me bananas. We had 10 kids at home all at the same time. And I tried super hard to love it. I bought all the shoes, bought all the gear, bought like the camelback, and I hated it every single step. Every single time I hit that pavement, I was like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. But I spent years trying to convince myself that I could do it. And I could, and I did, but none of it really fit for me. And it wasn't that I hated exercise. I love exercise. It just wasn't necessarily a great fit for me. And I want to invite you to that, especially when it comes to food. And I hear so many people that are willing to give up all of your favorite foods for sake of weight loss. If you like those food, and Nicole, you know me, I'm very strong spoken about this. If you like those foods, we have got to keep them in.
Yep.
But the frequency and the amount that we keep them in has to shift. That's the thing that we have to break up with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if we're having lattes every day from Starbucks, love your Starbucks lattes, right? Okay, we're gonna have to shift that, or we're gonna either have to shift what you're selecting, or we're gonna have to shift the frequency by which we're consuming those to meet goals. But it doesn't mean that you have to eliminate them. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to live the rest of your life never having fun with food.
Yep. And I say this all the time. There's no best diet. At the end of the day, you guys, there is no best diet out there. The
Nope.
best diet is the diet that you can sustain and maintain. And so let's go back to keto. Coming from somebody who loves carbs, they're a second love language for me. I don't want to know a life without potatoes or sourdough bread or pasta or any of those things. Keto, I tried, believe me, a few times. Didn't work for me because ultimately worked in the short term, but I gained every single pound back plus some. But, and I say this, and I truly mean this, you guys. I just got done talking about fasting and all of those, but fasting, keto, you could absolutely lose weight on keto. I mean, you do, right? And if it's something that you can sustain and maintain, and you're telling me right now you're not really a carb fan and you just enjoy the majority of bulk of your calories to come from protein and fats, and it is something that you can tell me wholeheartedly with every ounce of your being that you truly love eating this way, by all means, girlfriend, you do you, boo. Like, would it work for me? No, absolutely not. But if you're telling me right now, it's going to be a bit more challenging to build a body you love with keto, just because we don't have immediate fuel sources with being able to train, particularly with lifting heavy shit, but not impossible. We're going to have a few different hurdles where we're going to have to overcome, but not impossible. And if that is something that you truly like, it just fits your lifestyle and you love, I truly, and I'm not being facetious, I love that for you. If you find that thing that
Mhm.
works so well for you, and that's what women don't understand is, again, it's not that you don't have to. You can eat whatever you want. You just may not be able to eat it, like Ann said, the amounts that you want. But here's the beauty when you understand phasing nutrition and you understand dieting and then you understand normalizing calories, is like Ann said, okay, maybe Starbucks latte is your thing and you love it. You look forward to it every single morning and there's ways to make it skinny. I'm going to be a barista in my second life. Like, I just want to work at Starbucks and be able to be like, have you thought about just these few simple swaps that could save you hundreds of calories? And I bet you wouldn't even taste
Yes.
the difference. Like, I'm just interjecting that in my second life. That is going to be me. But let's say you love your latte and that latte is, I don't know, 250, 300 calories. I would never waste 300 calories on a latte. But again, that is what you love. That's what you enjoy. In a
Uh-huh.
fat loss phase, that might not be something that you get to enjoy daily. Because the reality
Hmm.
is calories are lower for a period of time and it's just not the biggest bang for your buck, right? But when we go to normalize calories and you have a bit more flexibility and freedom once you've reached your goals, and this is the part that women miss, they think they have to live at dog shit low calories, and that's
Oh,
exactly where
yeah.
they're stuck. But when we go to normalize calories, you have a bit more. And now, am I going to advocate for you drinking a latte from Starbucks? It probably still isn't the best bang for your buck when it comes to fuel and satiating and your training sessions and giving your body what it needs. But you could truly, when calories are normalized, probably fit it in every day if you wanted to, because that's what did it for you. And that's what keeps you, on the straight and narrow. That's what keeps you. For me, it's my yogurt bowl. Everything gets planned around my yogurt bowl every single night. I talk about it all the time, how much I love it. It is like my favorite part of my day. And so my whole day gets planned around that. Now, granted, I'm getting 50, like you could easily I'm getting 20 plus grams of protein in my yogurt bowl. But my point here is that when I'm in a fat loss phase, and I don't diet very often, but when I am in a fat loss phase, that yogurt bowl, like, it gets smaller and smaller. It doesn't have as many goodies packed into it, unfortunately, but it's just the reality
Uh-huh.
of what it is. And so it's not that these foods go away even in a dieting phase, but they're a bit more strategic in amounts and how often I get to eat them. But when my calories are normalized, I have more food freedom than I know what to do with, to be able to eat a super big, yummy yogurt bowl every single night. It's the same concept with your latte, but women don't get that piece of it. It's just like, a calorie deficit is a period of time. It's not meant to sustain, it's not meant to live there.
Yes.
Yes. Preach.
Yes. I feel like that should be a mic drop. Like and I don't think that people understand that you are not supposed to be in dieting mode for the rest of your life.
No.
And I see so many women make that mistake where they think, oh, I'm losing weight at this number of calories. This is my new number of calories that I have to be at to manage this weight.
No.
And I love the fact that you mentioned that because our bodies were not designed for that. That
No.
stresses them out.
Yeah. It's
And all you're going to get from that is a lowered resting metabolic rate. That's it. So the reason why that makes sense for a lot of people and the reason why that sticks is because if you stay there long enough, your body will adapt to it.
Oh, for sure. Adaptation is a real thing. And this could be a really great podcast episode, just talking about what it goes into normalizing calories. I think that could really be a powerful podcast episode for a lot of women who struggle. Because I'll be honest, you guys, I've gone through some pretty strict, when I dieted for my wedding, I mean, I dieted hard. I put myself in, I mean, I did it to myself because I had a vacation leading up to prepping for my wedding that I didn't want to be dieting for. And I'm like, oh, it'll be fine when I get back. And then in the thick of dieting for my wedding and having to take calories lower than I care to admit for a period of time to see the results that I wanted to see, I struggled. I do this too. It's like you see the results in a dieting phase, and it can be really hard mentally to normalize calories. You guys, this is why I have a coach too. I understand this up, down, left, sideways. I'll never not have a coach. I struggle to normalize calories. So there is definitely a mental aspect, mental more so than physical, any day of the week when it comes to what it takes to truly take calories from a lower, like a low amount. And my calories were low. I'm not going to talk about amounts, but they were low, lower than I would put probably most of my clients ever. But I understand what it takes to get in and get out. And when I had to normalize, there took a period of time where I was like, oh, this doesn't feel as good. Like, again, I struggle too, is my point here. Most women do not have the tools and the support and the guidance to be able to do this in a way that is effective, that brings, that normalizes calories. So energy comes back up, training sessions are better. Everything about life is better with normalized calories. Dieting
Mhm.
is not living your best life. It's just not. And so I do think that that could be a podcast that we do and just talk about what it takes. But I'm going to touch on this piece before we dive into our next point, because I think we've hammered this home. But the amount of women who come to me who think, because like you said, adaptation, you guys, metabolic adaptation is a real thing. And I want to point
Yep.
that out. It absolutely is. If you've been dieting for a period of time, your metabolism it's so very smart. It's dynamic. It was meant to keep you alive, and ultimately, it will adapt to your intake as well as your output. That's what it does. However, most of you listening to this, I'd be willing to bet if I had to, we've helped well over 1,000 women at this point. So there's just a wee bit of data. I can promise you, most of you listening to this, even dieting, your metabolism isn't adapted. You're just not doing the things consistently that you need to do to see the results that you're looking to see. And it's really easy because you hear the social media hype about metabolic adaptation. I would say of the thousands of women that we worked with, the women who have come to me who are truly in an adaptation state, 10 maybe of the thousands, it is not nearly as common as what you think. And most women who come to me, this is they're coming from me from bodybuilding backgrounds, and it just, that is a completely different state than I do the things Monday through Thursday, and then the weekends roll around and I'm not consistent, and therefore throws me out of a calorie deficit. But yet I've been dieting for a year and a half with no results, and so my metabolism must be adapted. No, sis, sorry, you're just not doing the things consistently that you need to do at a 90+% consistency rating to see the results that you want to see. And so I just want to make that so clear, because I hear influencers hammering down on adaptation all of the time. And the average female they're working with, unless you're coming from a competitive background, I would just be really, and some just really, really, really avid at. So I'm not saying it's all competitive, but most coming from a competitive, your metabolism isn't adapted. You're just not doing the things consistently. So I just encourage you to be open to that. If you are like, oh yeah, that's me, my metabolism, because I get it all the time. I destroyed my metabolism. I'm like, no, you didn't. Your metabolism doesn't break, sis. You did not destroy it. That I can promise you. It's not broken, but most again come from a dieting background of dieting their entire life, but dieting very inconsistently. And so
Yep.
therefore we think that it's our metabolism, but it's just really truly it's our consistency, and our data isn't locked and loaded, and we're just not doing the things that you're just not truly in a calorie deficit is what it comes down to.
Well, and I do work with people that go into heavy restrict modes just because I
Yes,
work in the eating
yes,
disorder
in
population.
your
And
situation is
so
different.
in that situation, or those people that have had a history of eating disorders, and I just wanted to kind of note that before
Yes,
we
that
moved
would
on
be
to
slightly
part,
different. Yes.
right, where literally I have people coming in and I'm doing the calorie count for them, and you are generally they're eating sometimes 1,200 or 800 to 1,200 calories a day.
Yep.
And that is where you will have metabolic adaptation
Yes.
and real calories. Now,
Mhm.
generally, what I will say is that the calories are not good calories. Generally, they're like special K bars, they're diet this, they're a protein shake,
Mhm.
they're like there's virtually no real food, or it's all rabbit food, one
Yeah.
or the other.
Lettuce.
And
Yeah.
there's
I'm
no
like,
fats, no proteins, especially no fats. And so so if you are in that camp, that is a slightly different camp.
yes.
But yes, a grand majority of us, which I think you did a beautiful job as a segue to point two, we're
Yes,
talking
I
about
did.
consistency now.
I was prepping. I was teeing that one up.
It's almost like you served it on a silver platter. So, the second point that we want to talk about in terms of how to make this work is that you have consistency. Nicole, as you said, a grand majority of women and I can say that I fell into this camp too.
Well, I did
We're
too.
doing
Period
we're
of time.
doing so well all week, and I hear this. I'm at work. I've got a good routine. All right. Got a good rhythm during the work week. I have my lunch. I pack my stuff. I'm meal planning. I'm thinking in advance of what I'm going to have to do because I only have this much time to get lunch in. And then Friday comes and we have a date with our husband. We have pizza with our kids. We do whatever we want to do. And the weekend doesn't stop until Sunday evening when we're thinking about Monday and prepping the meals for Monday. And I hear it all the time. I'll do this better this week. I promise this next week I'm going to eat better all weekend.
Yep. New week, new me. Monday rolls around. This is the week. I'm really going to do it. Oh my gosh. How many times I told myself that? Do you know how many times? So, when I want you guys to understand, whenever I talk so passionately about something, it's because I can talk from a space of, I hear you, I see you, I was you. I lived my life with these patterns and
Mhm.
I lived my life in this place that kept me stuck for so, so long. And so I never call these things out to laugh or point fingers, or I just call them out because I know exactly. I know where you're at. I know the situation you're in. I know what's keeping you stuck. And I know that there
Yes.
is nothing more daunting. And this is what I call it as the dieting mentally, not dieting physically. This is when we're Monday through Thursday spot on, right? It's the chicken kale kind of thing. Hashtag health. We're in a routine. We're in a rhythm. And then the weekend rolls around. At this point, you're hangry, you're miserable, and your body's screaming at you because you've starved it all week. And social situation, date night, girls' night, work event, whatever it is, grandkids, whatever it is. And then you put yourself in and around food. You can't control yourself. And my signature saying, you eat like an asshole. I know Anne says, trash panda, you eat like an
Crash Panda.
asshole. Yeah. And then it's that, like Anne said, well, I already blew it Friday, so I might as well Saturday, right? Like, well, I already like I already did the damage, and then it's a wash, rinse, repeat. And then Sunday evening rolls around and you start kicking yourself in the ass. And it's the Monday, new week, new me mentality. And it's this vicious merry-go-round that keeps women stuck. I have seen, and like and granted, I've been doing this for a while. And when we start to nail down the data, it's like I get geeky, but I've seen one meal. It can take one meal for somebody to throw themselves out of a calorie deficit, let alone 2.5 days of just going balls to the wall. Do you know how easy it is to sit down, especially if you've never really tracked and you don't understand what goes into calories, to sit down at a meal out, like we talked about serving sizes in America? They're, I mean, quadruple what they probably should be, and consume
Oh, yeah.
3,000 calories in one meal,
Easy.
especially when there's booze involved. Especially when
Easy.
there's booze involved.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I'm not against the, special night out that you go out and you enjoy and those things are done on occasion. But the reality is if this is like an occurrence thing every weekend that, it's just, hashtag living life, in the moment, whatever it is. And you're like, oh, it's just one meal out. I've seen one meal like completely derail your entire week, your entire week. And when you're in a fat loss phase, that is everything. That is everything. It doesn't happen like, I wish it would be so much easier if fat loss happened on the daily and the clock just reset at midnight. How easy would that be? But it doesn't work that way. And this is honestly though, it also plays to your advantage because this is where things like carb cycling and calorie cycling can work well. And you can give yourself a little bit less during the week and then give yourself a bit more flexibility on the weekends. That can be a tactic. But for the love of all things holy, if you cannot even hit your macros from the day to day, please do not take an approach like that. It's going to make it more convoluted and more confusing. But it can work really well when you have people who are a bit more social on the weekends to slightly. I'm not talking massive amounts of calories either, you guys. I'm not talking 500-600 calories a day just to completely stack it on the weekends. I'm talking 150 200 calories to give yourself an extra 1,000 calories on a Saturday night that you're going out with and having date night with your husband. That strategy, that's strategic. But just starving yourself all week long to go balls to the wall on the weekend, nothing about that's a strategy. And it's not going to be effective. And this is where so many of you live. And so if this is like a light bulb, you're like, yep, that's me. That's me. This is where, again, actual awareness in and around the strategy and calorie intake is going to serve you so well to actually be able to like hit those goals, achieve those
Yeah.
goals.
In therapy, we call this the problem that we're addressing is all or nothing thinking.
Mhm.
And the problem with it is that let's say you go slightly over on a meal, or you decide that you really want one of those mega cookies because your kid's got one, it looks really yummy, and so you eat the whole cookie. And if we pause and we literally just pause and we consider, I just had dinner, I just had this mega cookie. All right, I'm more than good. That was tasty. I've enjoyed that. Now I'm going to move on. Okay. But what happens is we go, oh my gosh, I just blew the entire week. And then from that, because I just blew the entire week, I might as well, quote unquote, enjoy it now. All
Hmm.
right. So now we open up the pantry and we're grabbing everything in the pantry. We're maybe going out to the grocery. We are door dashing dessert from another place. We're eating chips as the DoorDash is coming to the door. I have lived this myself as well. And the problem with it is that that cookie might have been at 300 calories, might have been 500 calories, might have been 800 calories. Doesn't really matter. Okay.
If it
Some
was a
cookies,
crumble cookie, it was
especially,
like 800 calories.
it's
Just
right.
FYI. Not that I know and I track the macros of my crumble cookies, just
Just
saying.
just if you're gonna get crumble, get the mini ones, guys. That's all we're gonna say. Okay, try go for mini. But that one cookie was done. It's good. It was fine. You're gonna go on from that. It's not gonna ruin your entire week. But then when we do the all or nothing thinking, you make a commitment the rest of the evening and sometimes the rest of the weekend to destroy the rest of your weekend.
Hmm.
And so what we're looking at is and then what I hear people say is that I'll just start Monday. No, that voice in your head is a liar. Tell her to shut up. She's not going to start Monday. You're going to start right now. I had a moment. It was all right. It's over. It was done. That was really good. And now I'm going to start with my next meal again tomorrow. And I'm going to do exactly what I did all week long. I'm going to start with the same breakfast. I'm going to eat the same amount. I'm not going to shift anything about what I'm doing.
Yep. Could you imagine? It's so funny. I love talking about this because when you put it in perspective like this, if we took how we viewed our health and fitness goals and we implemented that in other areas of our life, just how ridiculous it sounds, right? Like it's let's imagine your kid comes home and they flunked their math test and they like come
Uh-huh.
home and they're really upset and they're like, okay, mom, I just, I completely bombed it F. And you're like, well, that's it. You might as well just drop out. College, it's not on the table for you. It's over with. Like you're just, your whole life is ruined. I mean,
We'll,
it's,
we'll just take the class again next semester.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
fine. It's
no
fine.
worries. Like, could you imagine though, if we took that same mentality and we implemented it in any other, I call it the tire popping mentality. It's like you're driving down the road and you pop a tire. Do you pull over and slash the other three? No,
Please
like
do.
it doesn't happen that way. But it's just when it comes to our health and fitness, it's just like this all or nothing mentality that produces all or nothing results. We normalize, like women normalize this. And that's
Mhm.
the part that when you look at it and just, from a different perspective like this, and you're like, ah, all right. Okay. Right. And it is this, and there's so much that goes into when you have the right strategy. And this is the other part where all of these pieces are so connected. But when you have the right strategy, this need to binge on the weekends isn't there. When you're fueling your body correctly and you're giving your body
Yes.
enough of what it needs, I promise you, the need to want to go ham is just not there. Now, I'm not to say you're never going to not want the crumble cookie or the donut or the piece of pizza. Cool. That's
Yep.
life. That is where living your best life is at. But when you're fueling your body throughout the week and you're not starving it and living like off Ann said, like lettuce, and you get into these, you don't, the donut loses its power. I promise you,
Yes.
when your body is fueled and it's satiated, it does not crave the food like it craves it right now. And that's where the lack of strategy is coming into this also plays a role in this all or nothing mentality that you have because you're like, but Nicole, you don't understand. I'm starving. And I'm like, oh no, do sis, I do. I get it. I get it. And if you start fueling your body correctly, you wouldn't be as hungry. And I promise you that donut wouldn't be staring at you. And all you think about is the donut. It's the food noise here that we're looking to shut off as well. And we've done so many podcasts talking about how to, the power of, food noise. And Jules and I actually did a podcast on what really is food freedom. Like there's just so many, Ann and I have done multiple on this. And so please go back and binge the podcast. But that is where the right strategy bleeds into the actual ability to stay consistent.
Mhm. And I want to also add here, and this is very specific to the work that I do, and also the work that I had to do, because I could binge with the best of them. I could binge, and I could easily consume 10,000 or more calories in an entire binge. I had a really significant problem with binging. And when you learn consistency wise, strategy wise, to keep those foods in your diet, when you learn how to approach them differently, you can have a cookie, you can have a donut, you can have a piece of cake, you can have a drink somewhere that's really nice and fun. You can have a meal somewhere that's you're getting to enjoy the food that you thought was not humanly possible to enjoy and still stay fit. And when you learn how to have that in your meal plan, those things don't become seductive anymore. They don't wink at you from across the room. You're not obsessing about them at every party because you can't have them. you can have them and move on. And you can know the frequency by which you can have them and not get overwhelmed with them. You can literally change your nervous system and how it responds to those foods. And it is a nervous system issue. It is not a willpower issue. When you're binging that extent, your nervous system is like flooding you with all the things, and it can overcome you. But as long as you keep them, as long as we essentially say, I'm going to have to figure out how to keep them and how to enjoy them at a frequency that helps me meet my goals, everything shifts and unlocks when we can do that.
And I want that. That's truly what I want for every single woman. It's like if I could just give you one thing, it wouldn't even be your dream body. It would be the ability to truly be in the driver's seat when it comes to your relationship with food. That is the most
Uh-huh.
empowering, like when you have that control in and around looking at food. And I want for every single one of you to be able to look at a donut and you're like, I mean, I could eat the donut, but that's like the cheese and guac on my burrito tonight. And I just understanding the trade-offs and what that looks like. And the donut, you don't have FOMO. There's no like constant, like the
Yep.
noise isn't obsessive around it. You just understand the trade-offs and you're like, not today, but maybe tomorrow. Maybe if the donuts, like I just want that for every single female. And I just my heart hurts because I work with so many women and I joke around and I'm trying to be funny about it, but when I say you're in the driver's seat, the amount of women I work with who aren't even in the passenger seat or the back seat, they're in the trunk with their hands
Mm.
duct taped behind their back because their food quite literally consumes them. It controls their every waking thought and action. And I know, Anne, you can speak highly to this, but I've been there. And so that's what I'm saying. The power that I have, everything about life, everything shifted when I started to control food. I no longer,
Yes.
I used to have to give myself pep talks, you guys, when I would go out with friends of, okay, Nicole, you're not going to be pissy because you're not going to allow yourself to eat that. And I would literally like, it would consume, like it control my emotions. And I
Yep.
wouldn't allow myself to eat certain things around people because I was the fat person. So I would just order the salad. And then inside I was internally like so frustrated and upset because my friends were skinny, but they were eating the fries and I was eating the salad. So I'd have to give myself a pep talk before I would even go into the restaurant that I'm not going to let myself get pissy because I can't eat the fries in front of them because I'm already the fat girl and then they're judging me. It was just this whole inner dialogue that I would have upstairs. And I mean, that can be a whole different podcast too. I think that could be a powerful podcast. We're just coming up with all sorts of podcast episodes here. But that would just, if I could give anybody anything, I mean, yes, your dream body is one thing, but you controlling and running the show when it comes to the way that you speak to yourself and how you react and your emotions in and around food is, I mean, it changed my world. It changed
And
everything.
let me drop a little neuroscience just on that topic in particular. Every single time our limbic system or amygdala is operating, okay, and that limbic system fires and it hijacks the brain, or the feeling center, the amygdala fires and it hijacks the entire brain. If we just listen to it, if we just do whatever we want to do, we eat the thing, we binge on the whatever, what happens is that we're actually increasing the rate by which that will fire in our brain every single time that we're around that food. We create these patterns and associations in the brain. Okay. But every single time you learn how to respond differently to that, you see the donut and you're like, "Ooh, I'm already full. I'm going to have that on Saturday. So I don't need it right now."
Mm-hmm.
Every single time that you do that, your prefrontal cortex grows. It grows. So the thinking part, the reasoning part of the brain, and this is in neuroscience terms, this is self-discipline. We are changing the structure of our brain when we learn how to manage food. We are creating the structure of a brain that has a disciplined brain, and we wind up walking away with self-respect.
Yep.
Not because we avoided it completely, but because we didn't need it, because we know when we get to have it, and because we don't have to respond every single time we see it. And I used to be that person. The second I saw something that I wanted to eat, I had to either figure out a way to get to it, or I'd eat something else and eat a lot of something else because I couldn't
Mm.
have it.
Yep. Guilty. Been there, done that.
Because that's all my brain knew. It was like a little toddler around an ice cream sundae bar. Like I was eating all the things. I was out of control.
Yep.
Um, Now, I do want to point out the second part, and the second problem with with consistency is that motivation will drop over time. And this, I think, Nicole, you have probably seen time and time again. And I want to just note that this is why diets sell and why diets are so stinking seductive, is because initially in a diet, we get really good results really, really fast. And then we get to a place where we don't want to do it anymore. We're not liking this. We're not, we don't want to exercise. We don't want to do the weight loss thing. We don't want to do. whatever it is that we need to do, whatever strategy it was. And Nicole, I wanted to ask you specifically about motivation dropping over time and what it is that you've noticed in women that you've been working with.
Yeah. So I would say motivation is a luxury. It is not always going to be there, you guys. I wish I could tell you that I was always motivated. I mean, I'm going to use myself for an example today. I've knocked out the bulk of my steps. I still have not hit my training session for the day. Nothing about me wants to, my ass will be downstairs after we get done recording this podcast, doing what I need to get done, but nothing about me wants to do it today. And so
Mhm.
it is not always going to be front and center. And it is just that it's a luxury. And in the very beginning, when something's new and it's exciting, and that, yes, you're going to have more of that. And then life be lifing as life always does. And the thing that goes is the thing that's met with the most resistance. And if you're the thing that's most resistant is the thing that's motivated you in the very beginning because it's brand new and it's shiny kind of thing. And so this is why I'm so big. And this isn't the sexy part of it. And I think this podcast is all about the non-sexy. Maybe that's why I should just title this the non-sexy side of fat loss. But it is cultivating the values again that lead to the person that you want to become. And if you are somebody who values nutrition, if you're somebody who values training, if you're somebody who values moving your body and just values feeling good, then ultimately we will prioritize what matters to us. Point blank, end of story. And so it will not always be there, but this is where a level of A, repetition comes into play, but B, also being realistic, going back to the consistency piece of, let's use working out for an example. And women ask me all the time, how many days do I have to work out to see results? And I'm like, okay, let's back up. How many days can you commit to for me with
Yes.
training? That's what I first want to
Yes.
ask you, because if you can only, and when I say commit, you guys, I mean like you're putting it in your calendar the same way you
Mhm.
would a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment. It is in your calendar. You are committing to it. So let's say that you can commit, you come hell or high water, life be lifing, you can commit to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Cool. Why in God's green earth would I write you a 5-day training split? Why?
Yes.
Why? Because if you cannot commit, like what can you commit to? That is the first question. That's what's going to drive our success. Because I could write you a 5-day split and that sounds really cool. But if you can't commit to 5 days, then again, the mental side of it, it's like, well, I knew I wouldn't be able to do it, right? And it's this all or nothing approach that produces all or nothing results. And in the very beginning, when you're really excited, you find the time for the 5 days a week, and then life does what life does. And ultimately, you're 3 weeks into it, and all of a sudden 5 days goes to 4 days, and then 4 days goes to 3 days, and then you're like, F it, I knew I couldn't do this.
Hmm.
So that's the first part, is like getting really open and honest to yourself what you commit to. But there's also a difference of what can I commit to versus what am I just like being a little, I don't want to say like, this is uncomfortable, this is challenging to me, so now I'm making the excuse that I can't commit to it and I really could, kind of thing, right? So there is a very fine line of, is I always say my body's screaming at me, I need to listen, versus I just don't want to do the damn thing. There's a fine line there, and you know what that line is, but getting really open and honest with yourself is going to be the bigger piece of this. And this is why we talk about values and truly incorporating them and understanding. I would much rather you give me 5 days a week at 70% or 7 days a week at 70% than I ever would you giving me 2 days at 100% and then the other five at 20.
Hmm.
And that's what,
Hmm.
how most people tend to look at it. It's like, okay, I'll do these things a couple days, I'll check everything off the box, and then it's unrealistic, I can't sustain to it. And then if I can't do one thing, I do no things, and then my consistency just completely tanks. And then Monday rolls around and I'm super motivated for 2 days, and then I can't check everything off the box, and then I just continue to, it's a downward trend from there. And so consistency really is, it's the name of the game. It is with anything in life, you guys. It's just not even your health and fitness, it's anything. If you can't stay consistent, you're not going to reap the rewards that come from it.
Well, and how many of us go to work on days that we don't want to go to work?
Oh,
Like,
exactly.
right? Like how often are we showing up in life and we're doing the hard, and yet when it comes to growth, when it comes to things that are for us, how often we will put those not even on the back burner, but almost like in the attic. Like, okay, I show up all the time for my family. I show up all the time for my kids. I'm showing up for all these doctor's appointments and dentist appointments and doing all the things, but I don't really want to go to the gym. Well, I'm guessing, and I'm gonna really challenge you that you've probably done at this point, if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably done at least one, if not dozens of diets in your life that you convince yourself you could do something that was not sustainable and that you didn't actually want to do. So how about instead we try something that we work on being sustainable, and we do it in such an increment, in such a realistic increment that it's actually doable. I mean, and think about it. Think about a meal plan that you're just figuring out accountability and how to get in the right balance of foods and better quality foods, and you're going and you're working out 3 days a week. Like, could you do that? If somebody told you that would get you to the place that you wanted to be at in a year or in 6 months, would you commit to that if you knew it was going to get you to where you wanted to go?
Mm.
And I would venture a guess that most of us would say yes.
Yep.
And so it's really about having trust in the process itself, because the strategy is spot on, right? So I'm going to trust that when this is no longer glamorous, I'm not losing weight left and right. I'm showing at the gym and I'm not necessarily seeing it. And I think it took me, boy, I was in complaint land for a little bit, but I think it took
6
me a
months.
good, yeah, yeah. I, and I was showing up, I'm like, I'm getting stronger, but I don't really see it. And I think around the year mark, and I talk about this often, around the year mark, around 18 months, and my veins started coming out a little bit, and my arms got a lot of really a good definition. I always been a swimmer, and I'd always worked out, so my upper body was already really strong historically. I had good muscle memory, but I'd never had definition like that. And there were really little things that I was doing that you wouldn't think would add up to anything, but it was about doing it consistently. That's all.
Yep.
It just we have to give our bodies time to adjust. And unless you're taking steroids, which I would not recommend, you're not going to get instant results.
Nope. You are not. I love talking. And again, I can sit and talk consistency all day long. And it's not the sexy side of fat loss. It's not the glamorous side of fat loss, but I don't care what it is. You're not going to reap the rewards. And like Anne said, you don't always want to get up and go to work, but you do it. I don't always want to brush my teeth, but I'm brushing my
Yes.
teeth every single night because I know the repercussions of not brushing my teeth. Right. And so it's the same thing here, but nobody looks at the repercussions from not strength training because those are years down the road. Nobody looks at the repercussions from not feeling your body correctly. It's a different mentality. I get it, but at the same time too, you you can continue to chase the fads and the fixes and do the things for a period of time to lose 20 pounds to gain 30 back, and that just gets really exhausting as well. Or you can, commit to the long term of, like Anne said, year down the road with something that is sustainable, that doesn't like suck your soul thinking about it, and you're like, okay, I could easily hit 3 days a week. That feels manageable. I could easily hit it. Like, I'm eating these foods that I really love, and I could easily hit, once I understand what that looks like, 140 grams of protein. Okay, this feels manageable. It may not be as quick and it may not be as instant, but a year down the line, you're going to be like, you're going to be thankful that you committed to these small things that continue to stack over time, which is going to prep us for our third topic, which is Anne titled this the 1% weekly gains. And I think that this is something really impactful to talk about because it is these small things that compound into big results that in the thick and in the moment, like Anne said, going to the gym for the first 6 months, I didn't see the results right away. I didn't see those, but those 6 months were compounding. And she's in a place where she's like, okay, now like I can see this. I can see the veins. I can see the muscle. I can see the definition. But it is that we as human beings just have this, I guess, Amazon Prime mentality. We think our bodies are Uber Eats. Like, we're going to order it and it's just going to be shipped directly to our door 24 hours later. Just this mentality again. If you took your mentality, I just want you guys to really think about this and apply this to other areas. But this, like, it did not take you, let's even say 3 months. How long did it take you to pack on 30 pounds, Linda? It probably took you 2 years to pack on 30 pounds, right? It's
Yep.
not going to, you're not going to drop it in 60 days and 90 days, but that is that mentality that we have. And we tend to hyperfixate on what's not happening instead of that 1% that as we're stacking it, it's compounding over time. So pop off, Anne.
Yeah, so this is something that I work a lot with, and it's interesting because I start a lot on process related. I'm a real big advocate of process over goals. I think goals matter, but I think the process, if you have to pick and choose listening to this today. I want you to pick the process over the goals every single time. You might have the goal of losing 50 pounds, but the process is going to be the most important thing that's going to get you there, especially a process that fits in your lifestyle that you can show up and do, as Nicole, as you said, the unglamorous day-to-day existence of just showing up. That's it. Okay. And small steady improvements will occur over time. If every week we're doing 1% better, just 1% better, at the end of the year, we're going to be many percentages better at the end of the year than when we were started, as long as we stay focused on that 1%, one thing every week that we're doing. So one of the things that I do in couples counseling, when I have a couple come in to see me, I say, what is one thing that you've really appreciated about your partner, that your partner did for you over the week? Really specific. Give me a very specific behavior. And what is one way that you showed up as a partner that you were really proud of yourself? And every week they come in and they're saying, and I'm asking these same exact questions. And that's for two reasons. One, I want to get them really, really focused on having a sense of gratitude in relationships and in life. Gratitude does amazing things, according to research, to our brain and to our nervous system in terms of how it wires us to look at the world differently. I'm looking for positives in the world. Okay. The second reason is I want you to start thinking about how you're showing up in the world, and even how you're showing up in your marriage. And there are so many marriages that I have had, people that have been married for 20 years or 30 years, and they come in and I say, and they want to complain about their partner, all the things their partner hasn't done and all the things that they suck at. And then I will shift the conversation. I'll say, well, what did you do this past week that you feel really good about? And it's like crickets. Okay, I see where we're at. Okay. And for so many of us, that is our life in a nutshell. We are willing to point fingers at everybody around us or take a look at what everybody else is doing that we don't seem to figure out. Well, at least she can have a hamburger because she's thin. She can do this because she's in her 20s. I used to be able to do that, but we are in this place of woe is me. Life sucks. I can never do anything. And sometimes self-pity,
I
but
was
we're
the
not.
it must be nice girl. Oh my God. I was the it must. Oh, it makes me cringe, but I was her. I was the epitome of her. It was so
the,
bad.
the bitterness princess.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yes.
yeah. Oh, that's even better. I like that even more. Yes, I was ho ho. I was bitter.
And what we're not focusing on is what one thing that we've done that we were proud of, what one little baby step that we took to move our goals in the direction that we need to do. And even just 1% is still going to get us to a better place than if we have absolutely nothing that we look back on and we have done nothing in the course of 7 days. And when I don't know any of you, one of the books I often recommend is James Clear, the book Atomic Habits. It is a phenomenal book. I recommend it often. I read it, and this is where the concept of 1% actually came from, because he coined 1% gains. And he goes in and he's talking to star athletes and CEOs and executives and business teams, and all he is focused on are literally 1% gains every single week and figuring out those 1% gains. That's it. And he has worked with people that are celebrities and people that are phenomenal athletes, that is all he simply did, is showed up every single week to have that conversation about that 1%. So when progress feels too slow, we have to get really, really focused on making sure that, one, we're tracking the correct things and the correct metrics. If weight is your only focus, or the number on your scale, on the scale, or the size of clothes is your sole focus, you are going to feel really discouraged every single week
Mhm.
without fail.
Your balloon will be deflated quickly.
That's right. If your 1% is, and the thing that you focus on that you actually did achieve is you showed up to the gym 3 days and you worked a little bit harder on sit-ups, you worked a little bit harder on squats, you were able to get a little bit lower, you corrected your form on something. All right, that's a 1%. That's doable. That's a very specific behavior that we can tackle and then walk away feeling proud of. That is a process related metric. It will get you to where you want to go, even if you can't see it yet.
I'm just trying to
And I
find
am,
something to add to this, but you're just nailing it.
well,
Mic
and
drop for Anne.
I am really big about celebrating the small things, even so much that one of the fun stories that I share with people often, my twin sons who are 16 are in jujitsu currently. And they would get in the car and they would, they would spar. And I had one that was really strong and he would always win the match. And they would come in and they were constantly at each other. And the one who was losing was like, and he did this and he hit me in the face and da 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 da. And the other was like, well, you gave me a bloody nose. And it was like the second they got in the car, I felt like I was in a therapy appointment all over again. And so, me, mom, the therapist comes out, I'm like, okay, boys, let's talk about this differently. And we worked through the feelings, and I got both of them to work on some skill sets that they needed and apologize and repair and talk about feelings without attacking and all this good stuff. But what I started to do with them, and this was a really phenomenal shift, and what I saw was pretty fast, is that when they get in the car every single day, I say, what is it that your brother did well? They're twins, okay? And what is it that your brother did well? What did you like? And I forced them to do this. And I forced them, like, I sat in the parking lot of the jujitsu place, and I would not move my car until they at least engaged in the conversation, because they were real resistant. For those of you that are parents, just tag this, just try this at home, okay? Um, and I said, what's one thing that your brother did well? And what's one thing that you were proud of that you did? And I would not leave the parking lot until they could tell me. Okay. And now what's really cool is the second they get in the car, instantly they're talking to each other about what they liked that they did
Mhm.
and what they were proud of. And they're going on about how happy they were about this. Or like my son got in the car and instantly was like, Caleb did a great frame and he kept doing really good frames. And I was really impressed by XYZ. I can't tell you all the specifics because I don't know all the lingo. And he did this position really well. And then my other son will do. And what happened, and this was in a matter of just simply 2 months, is what transformed is that my car went from this constant tension, angry, nastiness, to suddenly this really supportive teamwork kind of environment. And I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying they never have any moments where they're angry with each other, but they really began enjoying not just the process, but each other in the process. And it wasn't
Mhm.
about winning or losing. It was about the things that they were noticing and the things that they were proud of in themselves.
Mm. I love that. So not how do I lose 20 pounds? How do I become the person that loses 20 pounds, to wrap and sum
That's
all of
great.
this up? And being able, when we can focus on the systems and the things that, the person that loses 20 pounds does these things, and you can hyperfixate on those things that you're doing really well, then ultimately everything about this becomes so much easier. The positive.
Yes.
Yes, I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of, like I said, just something really, really smart and, just to add to this, but you just nailed it. You nailed it.
Well, and I think one of the coolest parts about staying focused on the 1% gains and also the gratitude and the positivity is that when we come from a place of constantly looking at how we're failing or we're not quite measuring up, we aren't going to get any motivation
Mhm.
from that to show up the next day. If you, I mean, like one of the things that I talk about often is I couldn't do push-ups for the longest time because I had a torn rotator cuff, and I dropped one day after doing lots of it. I mean, my coach snuck this into me. I dropped one day and did push-ups, really irritated that she put it back on my stinking schedule again, and I dropped and I did 20 with like it was
Damn.
nothing. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that was sneaky. And I was really impressed. But if I had simply for months tried to do push ups and failed, I would have gotten really discouraged and said, well, none of this is working. And that was never even, ironically, that was never my goal. I just wanted stronger shoulders. Um, my goal wasn't to do push ups, but I got there, ironically.
Well, and I think that's a really great point to, like, you start off and you see something, okay, like push-ups. Without the build up leading up to strengthening the muscles to be able to do the push-ups, pull-ups, another perfect example. Very few people can
Yes.
just get up and just start doing pull-ups. There is a progression, there is a build up to be able to execute pull-ups. And so you start off with the pull-ups and you can't do a pull-up and you get you deflates your balloon, but yet you haven't, that's like you're trying to start at Z and you haven't accomplished everything from A to get to Z just yet. And so
Hmm.
there is that's where the process comes into play. That's where the strategy comes into play. That's where the consistency comes into play. All of
Yes.
these things are just, see how they're so all interconnected here. Being
I
able to, and
love
I
it.
do want to talk about, I want to wrap this up, you guys, with we talk about the 1% and the weekly gains and talk and focusing on the things that are doing really well. But ultimately, there is a reality that being able to track your success, if you don't have the right strategy, and let's say your goal is to lose 50 pounds, but you're not consuming the right amount of calories and you're not losing weight. Well, I'm not saying to beat yourself up over the fact that you're not losing weight. And we want to focus on the things that are going really well. We also want to get very open and honest and be like, look, the goal here is to drop some pounds. The scale isn't moving, so something's off with the strategy. There's a
Hmm.
kink somewhere. And being able to, I think that this is the power of coaching, because coaching can keep you focused on the bigger picture. You so hyper fixated and just write what's in front of you. Whereas the power of coaching can keep you, but if you're not working with somebody, there is a world where you have to be able to zoom out, and you have to be like, okay,
Yeah.
like, this is obviously the goal. The, you know, scale isn't moving at all. Inches aren't going down. There is something is off with the strategy. This is why we started with strategy and making sure that you understand it's so important that you have the right strategy. And the right strategy also goes with the right, calorie breakdown, the right protein breakdown, the macro breakdown that is going to lead to the results that you want. And so there is a piece of, yes, please celebrate the wins and do not overlook them. Don't brush them underneath the rug. It is so very important. But there's also a very realistic piece that the goal is obviously to make sure that, you're, if it's 50 pounds or whatever it is, that, you know what I mean, that you have the right strategy to reach that goal, whatever that goal is.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
And
And you can.
that's why this is so important, because
Mhm.
if at any place we're not doing one of these things, then we don't have, it's that feedback loop, right? We don't have an ability to shift anything because you're not consistent or because you have really crappy strategy. But man, we get really good at this. We get really good at the process.
Mhm.
Guess what's going to happen then? It's going to make it easier to figure out what the problem is, or what little tweak we have to make.
Yep. Little tweak.
Little
And we're
tweak.
no longer throwing, again, like I said, throwing spaghetti at a wall, praying that it sticks. This is why we are data nerds on our team, you guys, and we track. Because when we track and we have the data, we know where the data is off and we know where to tweak. Opposed to, well, it could be this, it might be this, maybe I'm eating this. What if it's this? It's no, it is absolutely this. And then we can make the right adjustments to the data. This is, again, another me coming Brian, why it's so very powerful to track not even just your intake. I'm talking all things. I'm talking your steps. I'm talking, your sleep. I'm talking other data points outside of just your calories. All data you should be tracking: calories, protein, sleep, water, steps, strength training days, your training, in the sense of making sure that you're applying progressive overload. Are you getting stronger? Are you tracking you're logging your weights? You know that week over week you are progressively getting stronger. There are so many things we track for a reason. And I know talking about this probably feels really overwhelming, but Anne, you track all of these things. It's really not, once you have a good system to be able to actually track, it's really not that hard to start to track all of these metrics. She's shaking her
No,
head
and
at those.
well, and I think what's really even cooler about it is that once you get into a rhythm of consistency, I mean, I can go out to a restaurant and eat, and like my belly knows what it needs. And it's
Hmm.
not, I don't have to think about this is this many calories and this is many, like I kind of get my needs met, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want the rest of that. It's good. And then every now and then I'll go back and I'll put it in, I'll be like, huh, that was on target. How
Yep.
about that? That's kind of fun.
Spot on. It's almost as if my body knows, and this is starting to become intuitive. And that's exactly what all of this is about.
Yep,
I
yep.
love that. All right, you guys. I mean, Anne, I don't have anything else on our notes. Anything before we wrap this up?
I think it's a wrap.
Yeah,
That's
that is a
good.
wrap. This is a longer one, but this was a good one for sure. we There was a lot of like mic drop moments here. If you guys find value, as always, liking, sharing, commenting, tagging us on your social media. The link in bio has both of our social medias are tagged in the link in bio to be able to follow and engage with either one of us. And then the application for coaching is, of course, in the bio as well. If you guys are ready for just expert guided support coming from the team who kind of sort of knows what they're doing. We've done this a time or two. So, as always, you guys, we appreciate every single one of you, and we shall see you in the next episode.
If this is helpful, give me a like, follow me, or subscribe for more.